our attorney, Akosua Banahene, here with us to talk to us about immigration. Um, we had a Google form and we have some questions from there. So I'm going to start off with those questions. And if we still have time, if you want to privately message me in the chat, I'll have a look at those questions to ask her if we still have time left over. But first off, I want us to give a big welcome to Akosua. So please in the chat, put some fire emojis, clapping emojis, saying hi, something to her. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're so grateful that you're here with us today. If you wanted to introduce yourself, please do.
Are you asking me if I want to introduce myself?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. My name is Akosua Banahene. I, of course, I am an immigration attorney. My office is in the DMV area, and thank you all for inviting me. Collins and Esther, I think I saw you in the email. So it's been a pleasure receiving that invitation, and I look forward to it.
Thank you. Okay, so our first question is about national interest green cards and any other thing that qualifies immigrants and international students for the green cards.
Okay, so what I did was put together slides that had detailed information on that. So if you want us to get through the slides, then I can answer the questions. However, the slides has the NIW and all the questions that you have, except for question 5. So can we do it that way?
That was perfectly fine with me.
Okay, that would be good. So let me share my screen for a second.
Maybe next second.
Are you talking to me?
I don't think she was.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, please, we can see it.
Okay. So in Collins and I think he did international students in with the responsibility of talking about the pathways to get so the self. So there are options available for you as a student. The first one is to self-petition for employment-based visa. The EB1 or the EB2 national interest waiver. I'll speak about that in a minute. Number 2, you can receive sponsorship from an employer through the H1B program. 3, you can to a dual intent and just the curricular practical training or or you can become just integration category.
Sorry. You're breaking up a little bit. The people are saying they can't hear you.
Oh, really? Okay. So how do I fix that? Can you hear me?
Good question. No, you're still breaking up a little bit.
Okay. So let's maybe that will help.
Okay.
Let's try that. Okay. How do I sound?
You're not breaking up anymore.
Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. So so I'll just walk through the options again. Number 1 is to self-petition for an employment-based visa under the EB1 category or the EB2 national interest waiver, which is the NIW. Number 2, you can receive sponsorship from your employer through the H1B program. Number 3, you can adjust your status to a dual intent visa, which is the CPT or OPT. Number 4, you can become an investor under the employment-based category 5, it's called the EB5. Or number 5, you can marry your love interest who happens to be a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident. So generally, under the employment-based visa, you require a sponsor who becomes your employer. Generally, your employer has to sponsor you to get a green card. However, that condition can be waived depending on the employment-based category that you're looking to explore. So under the EB1A or the EB2 National Interest Waiver, the condition of getting a sponsor can be waived. By getting a sponsor, your petition will have to go through labor certification with the Department of Labor before it comes to the USCIS. It's quite a lengthy process. But if you decide to waive that condition, then you're looking at filing for the EB1A or the EB2 National Interest Waiver. And I'm going to get into that in a second. So there are 5 types of employment-based visas. Start from EB1 to EB5. Under the EB1 category, to be eligible for that, you either have to be a person of extraordinary ability, an outstanding professor or a researcher. With these 2, you can self-petition, meaning you don't need an employer. You don't need a sponsor. And then the third eligibility for the EB1 is to either be a multinational manager or an executive in a company. That one you cannot self-petition. You need an employer, meaning you have to be coming to the United States to work for a specific employer. But for the EB1A, which is a person with extraordinary ability, or the EB2, which is a outstanding professor or researcher, you can self-petition. You don't need an employer. EB2, like I said before, generally you need an employer, but for the EB2, if you're requesting for a waiver, then you are filing for the national interest waiver. So you're waiving the whole labor certification process and saying that I possess something, I have something that is going to be of national interest to the United States. And so I want you to waive off the condition of getting an employer or having an employer sponsor me, and then allow me to come and do my thing or work for any organization or any employer that I deem fit because of the skills that I possess. To qualify for that, you have to have an advanced degree. An advanced degree is a master's or a PhD or its equivalent. And the equivalent of that is going to be a bachelor's degree with 5 years of work experience. And it has to be straight 5 years. It cannot be you work 3 years or 2 years and then something happened and then you went back to work. It has to be 5 straight years. You also have to meet 3 out of 10 criteria that the USCIS has put together. We're going to delve into that. The third type of employment-based visa is an EB3. EB3 category A is the skilled worker visa. So under that one, you have to be coming to work for an employer, and the job must require just 2 years of training or experience. So think about someone who does not have a degree, but someone who has someone who attended a polytechnic or a technical institute. And the category 2 under the EB3 is professional, right? And that job must require a US degree or its equivalent. So whether you have a degree from Ghana or here, you qualify for that. And category 3 under the EB3 is other workers on skilled labor. So a job that requires 2 years of training or experience. And it cannot be a seasonal job. So think about jobs like construction. Is that a question for me? I didn't hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. Someone talking, so I thought a question was coming to me. Okay. So under category C or 3 under the EB3, which is unskilled labor, you're basically coming in to do cleaning or restaurants or construction. In EB4, which is another immigration-based visa, is for religious workers, not necessarily pastors. You can be an usher, you can be in a musical team, you can be a cleaner in the church, or certain broadcasters or retired officers of international organizations. And EB5 is the investor program, which we discussed as another option to give you a green card. So we'll delve into that in a second. So let's talk about EB1 visa. To qualify for EB1, as I stated before, you can self-petition. So you don't need an employer. I think one of the questions that came to me was, what do you do if your employer does not want to sponsor you? If your employer doesn't want to sponsor you and you think or you believe you qualify for the EB1 visa, go for it. So for the EB1 visa, like I said, it's a self-petition. You do not need a sponsor or an employer. But you have to be an individual with extraordinary ability in science, education, arts, or even be an athlete. Number two, you have to be an outstanding professor or researcher. And number three, you cannot, so for the third category, you need a sponsor. So let's not get confused because it can be confusing. EB1, you have to be a person with extraordinary ability, an outstanding professor or researcher. And number three, you have to be a multinational manager or executive. With a person with extraordinary ability and an outstanding officer or researcher, you can self-petition. You don't need an employer. But if you are an executive or a manager of a multinational organization, then you need a sponsor. So, who qualifies as a person with extraordinary ability? This person has to have what is called a sustained national or international acclaim, meaning that you have to have had an award. You have to have done something of significance to the nation that has given you an international acclaim. So you may have a degree, you may have a skill, but if you do not meet this particular standard, you would not qualify for employment-based category 1 as a person with extraordinary ability. If you're an outstanding professor or researcher, you would have to demonstrate basically the same, an international recognition for an outstanding achievement. That's it's quite difficult to meet. You know, you can have all the skill, be a great teacher, be a great researcher. You may not qualify for that. And with a multinational manager or executive, which would require that you have a sponsor, you have to demonstrate that you have worked at least a year, 3 years preceding the petition, and you also come into the United States to work for an employer who has been in business for 1 straight year and is compliant to or with the states in which the business is incorporated. Let's go to EB2, which was like the first question you asked, the national interest waiver. I must admit that I have seen a growing increase in the Ghanaian space for this whole national interest waiver. And it's quite exciting because it looks like it was only the Indians who were, taking advantage of the national interest waiver. But now I see quite a number of Ghanaians get into that space, and I am excited about that. So that is great. So to be eligible for the EB2, which can be a self-petition visa, number one, you have to have an advanced degree. Advanced degree, as I said before, is basically a master's or a PhD, or its equivalent, which is a bachelor's degree and 5 years of work experience. Now, if you have that, that is the basic eligibility. You will have to have a proposed endeavor, and I'm going to explain the proposed endeavor in a second. You have to have a proposed endeavor that is of national interest. When you think about a proposed endeavor, think about the one thing you're coming to do in the United States that would serve as national importance. So if you are in the tech space, your work has substantial merit. If you're in the health space, your work has substantial merit. If you're an entrepreneur doing your own business, your work has substantial merit. But you would have to meet a threshold of national importance. In the year 2016, 2017, the Administrative Appeals Court did explain what the national interest waiver was. And it is not a simple threshold to meet. But if I mean to break it down, then you want to think about, so let's say you are a doctor and then you're coming to the United States. And then you say, let's say a surgeon, you're coming to perform a surgery, a particular surgery that has been spoken about in the news, a particular surgery that the nation seems to be fixated or interested in, something that is of importance to the United States. If you're not you don't have to be a doctor to qualify for the we already stated the eligibility. You want to think about, so let's say you're in the leadership space, engineer, tech, whatever it is, whatever space you find yourself. You want to define your expertise. What is the one thing that you can do? The one thing you can bring on board? If you're able to define that, then you want to list about 2 or 3 things you have done in that field that impacted your organization. So you work for organization A or B, and you were able to do a research that benefited the organization or impacted the organization in a way. Or you have a certain skill that you think when you bring on board is going to impact the United States in a broader way. It cannot be just for the company or the organization that you're going to work for. It has to be something that is of national importance. Number 2, you also want to think about that thing that you have done or that thing that you have, that skill that you have, that thing that you want to do in the United States. You want to ask yourself how that is going to change your field of expertise. And it has to be as clear as possible. It cannot be anything that is complicated. It cannot be anything that the officer who is not, so immigration officers are not scientists. They are not engineers. They are not in the STEM. They are not teachers. So you want to be very clear and concise and precise in that thing that you want to do. Your proposed endeavor. It is the biggest part of NIW. So if you're able to define your expertise, you're able to tell us, and by us I mean the USCIS officer, you're able to tell the officer that for this thing that I have done or this thing that I possess, it is going to change my field in this way. It's going to impact the United States in that way. And I'll give an example. I have a client who is a doctor in Nigeria. And I got to know that most doctors specialize in either public health or anesthesiology. So this client of mine happens to specialize in both. And we had to put together an NIW petition for him. And so we made a case, and this will probably solidify what I have said so far. We made a case that during COVID, we all saw in the news what was going on in ICU because there was a lack of health professionals. There were a shortage of health professionals, anesthesiologists, and all that. So being a specialist or specializing in both helped her a lot with her case. And back in Nigeria, she had done work during there was a breakout of cholera. There was a breakout in HIV/AIDS, and she has done significant job during all these, pandemics. And so we were able to make a solid case for her. Now, like I said, you don't have to be a doctor. You just want to be able to narrow down exactly what you want to do in the United States. You want to make a case that is very, very crucial and important in the United States. And in times like this, you also want to, what I tell my clients is go on the internet, You know your specialty. I don't know your specialty. You can come to me and say, oh, I am a doctor. Let's say I am an engineer. If you're finding it difficult to think of the one thing that is going to be of national importance, which will help build your case, then you want to quickly do a research, check in the news portals. What are some of the things that are missing or lacking in the United States that has been spoken about? So it can be a previous government, it can be a current government, it can be a government that goes way back 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago that have spoken about a thing which is of national importance to the United States. And let us build your petition around that. But you also want to be sure that you have the skill set for that proposed endeavor. So two things. Number one, you have to have an advanced degree, a master's, a PhD, or bachelor's with 5 years of experience. And number two, that's the NIW waiver. Whatever it is you're coming to do in the United States, which is the proposed endeavor that I have explained, must have some substantial merit and national importance. Substantial merit is basic. Healthcare, engineering, leadership, lawyers, everything is of substantial merit. The hard part is whether it's of national importance, and that's where the proposed endeavor and the examples I have given comes in. The second prong under the national interest waiver is where we are positioned to achieve the proposed endeavor. So after you have been able to narrow down exactly what you want to do in the United States, which is going to be of substantial merit and of national importance, you want to be well positioned for that. And well positioned, I mean, it's just a big term, but it's very simple. You have worked in the space that you're trying to apply for. You have academic credentials in that space. We're going to look at your resume. If you have any achievements, it can be a very simple achievement as top in your class. If you have any awards, all the better. You need experts in your field. So if you're in an engineering field, you want to talk to an engineer to, give you an engineer who knows your work, who knows what you have done before, to give you a letter basically recommending you. With your recommendation letters, that is going to help you to be well positioned to achieve that endeavor that we just spoke about. Those cannot come from your friends. Those cannot come from your family members. It has to come from people in the field. It has to come from experts in that field, independent experts in that field. People that will look at your work and say, oh, I can vouch for you. Not people that know you and can give you letters just based on the relationship they have with you. It doesn't work that way. And the third prong under the national interest waiver is when we consider the skills that you have, the proposed endeavor, your academic credentials, if we put everything together, would it be in the benefits of the United States to waive the labor certification process, which is basically, getting a sponsor or an employer? Is it going to be beneficial to the United States to waive that and give you a green card? You don't have much control when it comes to the third prong. What you have control of is your proposed endeavor, the one thing that you want to do in the United States, and how positioned you are to achieve a proposed endeavor. It may sound difficult, but it is not difficult. What I do for my clients is that send me a resume. Let me look at it. Tell me the works you have done. How confident are you about the work you have done? And what is the one thing you want to come and do in the United States? If you're able to justify that to me, we can solidify your petition and then send it out, and then you can get your green card. So the national interest waiver, you get a green card that covers you and your immediate family, which is you, your spouse, and your kids. It doesn't cover your mothers, it doesn't cover your fathers, your grandmothers, aunties, uncles, no. It's just you and your immediate family. So that is a summary on the national interest waiver. The other thing that you can do to get a green card as an F1 student is to adjust your status to a dual intent visa under the CPT or OPT. So with a CPT, as I mentioned before, the curricular practical training, when you work for your school through internship or like a cooperative education or work and study, through an agreement with your institution, what you can do is, depending on how you perform, depending on how you go about your duties, you may inspire your school to sponsor you. I have lots of people, I personally know people that got a green card through that. I think what sometimes we take for granted is, oh, it's just an internship, so you're not going to give your best. People get green card through that. So you may participate in CPT once you submit necessary documents and you have authorization from your designated school official. And then the OPT, which is very popular, a benefit that is available to international students who are enrolled in or completing a degree in the United States. Of course, it allows you to get work experience in your area of study, and eligible students would receive 12 months of OPT employment authorization prior to completing their education. And after completing, you may be able to extend it for a year. But if you are in the STEM space or field, tech, engineering, science, math, you can extend it to up to 24 months. And again, depending on your performance and commitment, your employer may sponsor you through the H-1B. I know people. I have a client that recently became a US citizen, and it was through internship. He outdid himself, spoke really well, worked so hard. And the employer said, you know what, I cannot let you go back. So we're going to get your green card. And recently,
listen to my voice.
We got him naturalized to become a US citizen. So that is another option that is available for you. Number 4 is becoming an investor. I think I had mentioned that as a part of one of the pathways to get a green card. So if you have 800,000 US dollars to over $1 million, you don't have to be here. Give me a call. Let me help you get a green card. You can invest that amount depending on the employment targeted area. And investment funds must create at least 10 permanent full-time jobs. That gives you a green card for you and your immediate family. And the last, most popular, that people really love is getting married to a US citizen. It is a great pathway. But what I tell people all the time is that you want to do a thorough check on your spouse or whoever you're getting married to. You want to be sure the person does not have criminal records, the person has a job, the person has a place to live, the person has a lease that he or she is willing to put you on, because there are pieces of evidence that we need to submit, or you need to submit to the USCIS to show that you are in a bona fide marriage. If you're not able to present any of those evidence, it's likely that your petition is going to be denied and you'll be put in removal proceedings, which is deportation. Some of the evidence that you want to look out for, or some of the questions, the hard questions that you have to ask, and that's what I tell my clients. You can even request that your spouse gets a criminal record for you to see. Because if your spouse has criminal records, it would not help you. You also need to make sure that the person has a bank statement. Believe it, I know people who got married to US citizens and they did not have bank accounts. You want to establish that as a couple, you are commingling your funds, because that's what married people do. You put your funds together, however you're going to do it, but make sure that you have an active bank account. not just a bank account. You cannot create a bank account or open a bank account for the purpose of immigration only. You cannot do that. The petition will be denied. You'll be put in deportation. So you want to have an active bank account, which shows both of you, and the transaction cannot be from one person only. The transaction must show that this person is depositing, that person is depositing. So if an immigration officer picks your bank statement and sees that Collins is the only one working and it's only his paycheck that is getting paid into the account, and Collins happens to be the beneficiary of the whole petition, Collins is likely to be denied, and Collins is likely to be put in removal proceedings because that establishes that you are not in a bona fide marriage, you are in a sham marriage, and you'll be deported. So that is the fifth option that is available for you to get a green card. So we've spoken about five options. Number one is the self-petition EB1, the national interest waiver. Number two is to get an employer to sponsor you through the H-1B. Number three is the dual intent visa, CPTOPT. Number four is to become an investor. And number five is to marry your love interest who happens to be a US citizen or a lawful permanent resident. So those are the five pathways to adjust your status or get a green card. Now to the questions that I received from Collins that Esther was asking. The first one was a national interest green card. I think I spoke about that, but if you have any questions on that or if anything was not clear, please ask me before we go through the other four questions that I received.
We did have a question about that, I think. Somebody asked, how much should one expect to spend when filing for the NIW with your assistance? And is there a charge for preliminary assessment?
Is the question in the chat box or you're reading it to me? And if you're reading it to me, please read it one more time. I just had.
Yeah, I'm reading it to you. I'm sorry.
Okay, please read it again.
My bad. Okay. The question was, how much should one expect to spend when filing for the NIW with your assistance? And is there a charge for a preliminary assessment?
Yes, there's a charge for preliminary assessment, and it entails reviewing your resume, having a Zoom session with you to tell you why or why not you don't qualify, and make recommendations to you to help you qualify. So there are people that meet the criteria, right? But it is not heavy enough, right? And so I give recommendations after reviewing the resume. I tell people what to do and how we can strengthen their petition based on their resume. So yes, there's a charge for that. And when it comes to my charge for the NIW, I tend to waive quite. I tend to reduce when it comes to Ghanaians because, like I said, I am seeing a growth or increase in interest in the Ghanaian space for the NIW, which I absolutely love because NIW is for everybody. It's not for Indians only. And I think that they are equally talented, equally smart, and we can also benefit from the NIW. And so, yes, I do give a discount. Ordinarily, I charge 6,500, but for the Ghanaians, my own people, I do 5,555.
Thank you.
Yep. Hold on, before you jump into the second one. So let me tell you this. I think one of the questions was whether, let me see, I think that was like the fifth question, whether marriage is the best option and whether it's fast. Let me tell you this. It depends, right? I know you probably would have gotten to that, but I want to make a comparison to the NIW. With the NIW, you have an option to file what is called a premium processing, and that speeds up the process. You can get a decision in as early as 15 days. And you cannot do that for the marriage-based green card. I have clients whose marriage-based green card came through as early as 4 months. I have those who are still pending and it's been like 2 years, right? So if you can have a trade-off and you qualify for the NIW and you can pay for premium process, in your case, it's expedited, you can get a response in 15 days and you can move on with your life, right? Whether you get an approval or not, you get to move on with your life versus just your petition getting stuck with the USCIS based on the marriage-based green card. So if you believe you qualify, I'm happy to talk to you about the NIW. I actually love to see Ghanaians do the NIW because, like I said, it's been dominated by other people, and I think we are smart and we can qualify.
Awesome. Another question, I just sent it to you so that you can read it too, in the chat. But it says if you're in a PhD program and have a master's already, when is a good time to start processing the NIW option for your green card?
Okay, great question. So if you have a PhD, you're in a PhD program, you have a master's. Have you, whoever asked the question, how many years have you worked after having your master's program? Because if you have worked for some time, I would encourage you to file it now. And I'm saying file it now because it's actually a good time to file some of these immigration petitions. And I'm not even going to discuss politics here, but the news, I'm not going to disclose who I support and who I support. This is not a political forum, but President Trump says that he is going to be very, very strict on immigration benefits. He's going to put in policies which is going to tighten up some of these immigration benefits. And it's President Trump. I know because I know the law, I know it's not going to be very easy for him to get through with his policies. I know that for a fact. But I also know that he has done certain things and has had his way. And so I cannot tell what is going to happen in the near future. But if you believe you qualify for any immigration benefits, the time is now for you to file it. And so, PhD student, contact me. Let's have a chat.
I don't know if this helps, but they said that they've worked for more than 5 years, the PhD student.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to put my. I think if I were able to share the screen, you would have seen my business Instagram pages and contacts, but I'm going to put that in the chat as well. So feel free to shoot me an email and let's have a chat. If you have worked for 5 years, let's have a chat.
Okay. I have a question for you actually. Oh wait, there's another question in the chat. If you have a job after graduation, but your company is not sponsoring and you're in the process of applying for your STEM opt, can you also apply for the NIW visa?
If you have a job after graduation, but your company is not sponsoring and you're in the process of applying for STEM option, can you, should I assume that you have a bachelor's degree already or you have a master's? I don't know. But if your company is not sponsoring you, shame on them. But yes, you can apply for the NIW if you are applying for a STEM. I have a master's and an MBA. Okay, give me a call. Let me look at your resume and yeah, let's see. Okay. If you are, yes.
So does EB2 also have something to do with NIW, or am I getting that confused?
So NIW is under EB2. I
Okay.
think yes, NIW is under EB2. So NIW generally you need an employer, right? You need a sponsor. If you're looking to waive that condition of getting a sponsor, that is where the NIW comes in. So without the NIW or asking for a waiver of an employer or a sponsor, then your petition will have to go to the Department of Labor for labor certification, something called prevailing wages. And once that process is done, it goes to the USCIS. And that is where your company will have to put in, all the documents that they're compliant, and then your academic credentials and the roles that you're trying to fill, how much they're going to pay you, which will have been completed by the Department of Labor through the prevailing wages. And then the USCIS can approve you or otherwise. So yes, NIW is under EB2 when you request a waiver of the employer or sponsor.
Got it. So then if that's the case, then we have another question. I also sent it to you again in the chat. Someone said, how many references does somebody need to apply under EP2?
Prior to being a licensed attorney, I had heard people say, oh, you need about 10, you need about 11. That's not true. I have filed a petition for someone and submitted just 2, and the person got an approval. So it all depends on how strong or solid how solid the reference is. So it cannot be just, oh, I know this person, I work with this person here, and this person did that and did that. And one thing that I offer again, and I try to do the heavy lifting for all my clients, I have a template that will literally walk your reference through what to provide in the reference letter. So yes, you need at least 2, but if you have more, all the better.
Awesome. And then someone also wants to know, what is the charge for the preliminary assessment for a client? I'll text.
It's $100 for 30 minutes. If we go more than that, if we go like 35 minutes, I'm sorry, it's going to be $200, but it's $100 for 30 minutes.
Okay. That's all the questions I think we have right now.
Hey.
Pertaining to those things.
All right, sounds good. I would like to put my information in the chat box. So if you have any questions, please feel free to call me, 703-705-9905. Okay, so immigration is a federal law. It does not matter where you are in the world. I can represent you. We have systems and structures in place that allow us to communicate with clients across the globe. And so distance is not a barrier. So don't say, oh, I wish you were in Atlanta, or I wish you were in PA, you were there. No. If at any point we have to show up, so let's say you're adjusting your status through the marriage-based green card. Most of my clients, thankfully, do not have to attend interviews, but I have a few who have to attend interviews. And so if it gets there, we'll have to fly. Well, you'll have to fly me to your state to attend the interview with you. I have clients who say, I'm good. You don't have to come. Just coach my spouse and I, and we offer coaching session as well. So I think having your attorney there in the interview is good because the officer knows you're watching. If it goes wrong, your attorney is there. We can file a complaint and all that. But there are people who are very confident that, you know what we're about, we're good, so we don't need you, and that's fine. So immigration is federal. I can represent you wherever you are. So don't say because she said she's in the DMV area, I would not contact her. I can still be your attorney. And I'm Ghanaian, so I can understand your language too, right? Okay. So I just put my number. Did I send it to you, Esther?
You did.
Okay. And then our business page is ab.legal.consult. That is for pages. Why does it say I am texting you? I don't know. How do I search that? I'm not in spam. I'm in law.
Oh.
So
the send chat. So when it says to at the in your chat thing, it's supposed to like if it says to me, then you should put to everyone. But I'll also just copy and paste.
Okay.
So if you're in the chat, okay.
Okay, so I think I put our business number out there. I put our Instagram and our Facebook is AB Legal Consult LLC, and our TikTok is let's see. I had it all up in my slides, but it looks like it wasn't working. So my voice was breaking and all that. Okay, so TikTok is the immigrants attorney. So please follow. Let me put my email address here as well. Banahene at ablegalconsult.com. So yes, these are my contacts. Feel free, when I read your emails, I don't charge you. So feel free to send, yeah, I don't charge to read emails, no. So I also don't charge to reply text messages. I charge when you start asking questions that looks like you're gathering information for your petition. That is not nice, so don't do that, okay? All right, so give me a call, text me, send me an email, and let's chat, okay? I've had a wonderful time. I love migration. I love to talk to immigrants. Like myself, I'm very passionate about what I do because when I came to the United States, I had knowledge gap. I made mistakes, and I paid for it. And I don't want people to experience same. And so I'm happy to always have a chat and just give out as much as I can. So feel free to reach out to me with any questions. Sometimes we operate based on what people have said and other people's experiences as immigrants. People's experiences are not your experience. So the fact that someone's petition took almost 3 years or 5 years, or the person has been here for years and the person has still not heard from the USCIS, does not mean yours is going to be the same. So please, please, please don't operate based on people's stories when they are not attorneys or they don't know the law. So feel free, reach out. That number has a WhatsApp presence as well, so you can WhatsApp us. We will respond to you, and yeah, that's basically it. It's been a pleasure. I have enjoyed it. Yeah, I'll come again if you invite me.
Of course.
Mhm.
The email is abanahene@ab